Hello, welcome to this lesson where we're going to begin to learn about some of the math functions that are built into Java. A lot of times you program something, you'll need to take a square root or raise something to a power or a logarithm or something like that. So I'm going to show you how to deal with these math functions. And the first one we're going to learn about is the absolute value. Now let me take you back to this website we learned about here in the last section. This is the methods that are members of the math class. And so at the very top of the list, we have ABS, returns the absolute value of a double value. Also, it returns the absolute value of a float, returns the absolute value of an integer, returns the absolute value of a long. So basically the same function ABS, if you pass the number that you want to take the absolute value of, it returns the absolute value of that number. Pretty simple, and I chose absolute value because it's so easy to understand. So let's create a variable. We'll call it num1, and let's set it equal to negative 2.54. All right, so that's our number. And let's create a variable called answer. We want to hold the answer of the absolute value. So let's say answer is equal to the absolute value of that number. Now, typically you would think ABS is the function, so we would just put ABS and then we would pass it the value of number 1, and whatever this resolves to, the absolute value of this variable, which in this case is this number, we'll take the absolute value, we'll assign it over here. You would think that would do it, but you see you have the red squiggly here. If you highlight over that, now we see that the absolute value function has a red squiggly under it when we write it this way. So if we hover over it, it'll tell you basically there's some kind of an error. It says the method is undefined for the type. It's basically a generic error saying it doesn't really understand what that is. Well, much like system.out.println, we need to write this as follows: math.abs. In fact, you can see a lot of these other things here. These other functions, we're going to get to a lot of them later. Whenever we put capital math dot, the ABS changes to underline, all the red goes away. It seems that all of the errors are basically disappeared there. So we think that that's correct, so we can hit save. And then we can go system.out.println like this. And then we can come over here and we can say quotation, the absolute value of, and I can put plus num1 like this. And I can put another space, is, and then over here I can put answer. So basically I'm putting the original number plus the answer, and if I hit run, the absolute value of negative 2.54 is positive 2.54, and that's exactly what you expect an absolute value to do. It just takes the sign. If there's a negative sign, it throws it away. If it's already positive, it just keeps the answer as being positive. So notice that whenever we use this function, we have to reference the class with a dot and then the method that's a member of that class. If we go back to this document here, we are in the math class. That's what we were basically looking at here, the math class, and then we come down here and we see all of the methods that are part of that. So when we access a method that's a member of a class, you use this dot notation, which is the same thing we've been doing for system.out.println, because the println method is a member of that parent class, just as this is a ABS function is a member of that class. Now there's many ways in which we can do that. Let me take this away. There's many ways in which you could do it. We could say something like, we could just do a system.out.println like that. We could say, in fact, we don't even have to put any text in there at all. If we just want to do the absolute value of negative 3.37, notice how I've wrapped this up here. I've taken the function math.absolute value parentheses, I've passed it negative 3.37. So this whole thing is sitting inside of the println method there. So if we hit run there, it's just going to return the absolute value here, because this method here returns a number which is then inside of the println statement there. All right, now the entire thing works just fine. Also, we can take all this away here. Well, let's go ahead and take this one away. The same thing works if we're using integers, for instance. So I can say, let's just take the whole thing away. Integer, negative 9 point, let's do integer number, negative 9.97. And then we can do something like this. We can say system.out.println. then we could say math.abs, and then we can do number. So basically we're doing the same thing. We're taking the absolute value method, we're passing it a number inside of parentheses, which is all inside of this guy here, and we're doing it with an integer instead of a decimal here. Now, of course, this isn't quite right because I have an integer. Notice we've got an underline here. It says type mismatch. Well, that's because I was silly here. I shouldn't put a decimal when I have an integer variable here. So what I'm trying to show you is that I've got an integer variable, I've got a negative number assigned to it, I'm passing it to the print statement there, and you can see a positive 9 comes out. If I change this negative 9 to a positive 9, save it and run it again, we get the same output. So very, very easy function to use as our very first function that we're doing in terms of the math libraries there in the math class there. So what we're going to do is learn how to use the absolute value method, which is a function of the math class. Notice we did not have to import anything like we did for scanner. We didn't have to put any import statement up here. That's because java.lang, of which the math class is a part of, is automatically included in all Java programs. So you have access to using all these math functions without any other overhead or any other importing required.